Hi everyone. Hi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. All right, irrespective of where you are joining us from. And once again, I say a very big welcome to every one of us. Welcome to Financial Modeling Bootcamp, which we titled Time Out with Victor on Financial Modeling. Please, I will appreciate if we can just drop our greetings in the chat box. If you're a visitor, all right, if you go and greet someone, you need to knock, right? Knock, then say, hey, good day to you, or something like that. So I would really appreciate, so that I can confirm that we are all together. Just type something in the chat box. Hello, knock. Just a greeting, right? let's say, let's be polite. If you come to someone's office, you definitely need to knock before you enter. So I will appreciate our greetings. Thanks everyone. While we are expecting our other colleague to join us, let's just say hi to ourselves. All right. So once again, my name is Victor, and this is my face. I hope I look like my picture. Right. Yes. I'm looking good. Right. Yes. Knock. Good to have every one of us in our session today. Right. So if you really want to be a good modeler, and this is something I've also seen the trait in top modelers in the world. They are always playful, right? Because modeling is such an interesting thing. I won't lie to you about that. Very interesting. It's something you enjoy doing, right? I've gone for one interview and they told me, aside financial modeling, what else do you enjoy doing? I said it's still modeling because it's like I'm playing a game, right? So it's either you win, you lose, or you draw, right? So you make mistakes, you correct it, you kind of face reality. It makes you get better. The more you build, the more you get better at it. So, welcome again for our guys that are just joining us. You did not knock, so please make sure you type in the chat box. Hello, just say something. Knock. Good day to every one of us. So, without wasting much of our time, I'll be straightforward. To be a straightforward kind of thing, won't waste much of our time. As I said, this is just a knowledge sharing session. So please always keep that in mind. And the whole objective is to make sure that we impact others with our knowledge. And I don't want you to see this session as a teacher to students of a thing, right? Okay, please, I hope you can hear me. Someone is saying is my voice audible to everyone? So maybe you want to check your end, but I believe you can all hear me clearly. Please let's okay, great. Thanks for that. Okay, so please you need to check your audio at your end. So I don't want you to see the session as a student to teacher of a thing. I'm also a learner. I'm also learning, and this thing is all about business base. It's all about, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? So uh, I would like us to ask as much question as we can ask. Right? This is an open session. If I say something, if you don't agree, please say it. But let's be professional in all we do. So once again, I say very big welcome to every one of us. So I'm going to switch off my video now. So this session will also be recorded so that we can also share the recording after the session. In case you miss any part of the session, you can always go back. But please ask as much question as you can. If it does not make sense to you, right? Out of nonsense, sense used to come out from it. I've learned so many things from my mistake as well. All right. Okay. So I'm going to switch off my video, so you can also do that at your own end, so that we can all concentrate on my screen. So I hope you can see my screen. Okay. All right. Alariwaju, you're looking good. I can see you from the video. All right. Thanks for joining. Okay. All right. So let me switch off my video so that we can all concentrate on my screen. So straight to the point, we keep it short. Ask as much question as you want to ask. Just see this as a discussion. Now, financial modeling bootcamp. Time out with Victor on financial modeling. And for you to be a financial modeler, an expert at it, your accounting knowledge is 100% needed. Your Microsoft Excel skill is also needed, and also your finance. So we make sure we take our time to also take us through some of these basic concepts. Now, as a financial modeler, the way we understand and we teach a concept is different, slightly different. we kind of understand the concept in a layman term. Now, let's get started. Welcome to the bootcamp once again. And before I start with anything, I want you to know that, one, if you're an accountant, you already have almost 80% of the skills needed to be a modeler. So I usually say that once you are an accountant, definitely you are close to being an expert when it comes to financial modeling because you know it. Now, and I want you to also understand that when you want to learn something, it's basically because you have it in you. What we are just trying to do is let's bring it out from you. So when I say this is this, it kind of connects to your brain and your brain kind of activates and like, oh, okay, so this is what this is saying. So that's the way I want you to see it. So many people claim they know how to build models. And to be candid, I will not argue with them. Just because of one reason. Most of the courses that we have online, very, very great. But I'm someone that I kind of have a weakness, and based on that, I've used it to develop. I've developed a kind of strength from it. I really don't like learning things in a book written way. In other words, I like to see the practical. Then from that practical, I can now reverse back and pick the book. I don't know. That's the way it kind of work for me. Even when I'm working on a project, hey, first tell me what this thing is all about before I can now go back and start reading all the documents you share with me. It's my own kind of approach. Luckily, it works for me. Now, most modelers kind of lack one skill because they tend to focus on another skill. So this our own modeling will be a combination of both. Now, we have two approaches when it comes to financial modeling. And please, I really want you to understand this clearly. Right? I want you, okay, yes, reverse engineering. Thank you for that. I want you to understand this clearly because once you can understand this, you know what? You will understand one of the reasons why most managers, top executive, why they are being paid huge salary. You will understand what's this whole world all about. As I said, modeling is real, it's practical. And when I teach something, I'm not someone that wants to go through what is financial modeling. Financial modeling is this, and it ends there. No, let me bring it to reality such that you don't even need to cram anything. That's one good thing about modeling. So two approaches. The first one is what we call mechanical approach. To anything you want to learn, any concept you want to learn, you need to understand the story behind it. Because once you cannot get the story behind it, you will keep struggling. Once you can understand the story behind it, financial modeling, what's the story? What's the first knowledge that I need to have? That's because that's basically what the approach is saying. So the first one is what we call mechanical approach. And mechanical approach is, in fact, I believe is the most important aspect of it. There are some people that they really cannot sit down and build model from scratch. But if you build your model and you send it to them, they will diagnose the model, and maybe you are feeling proud, you are feeling like you have a superpower, you've built a great model. They will diagnose it and rubbish it for you, not because of anything, because they have the mechanical understanding of it. And what is mechanical saying? It's basically you understanding how business is being run. If you understand how business is being run, understand, oh, if I go to energy, this is what happened in the energy space. If I go to oil and gas, this is what they do there. If I go to bank, this is what they do in the bank. All right. Aguala, you're looking good. You can see your video. Don't worry, you can switch it up. You're looking good. Right. So if I go to the bank, this is how bank operates. If I go to the manufacturing space, this is how they operate. If I go to the tech space, this is how the tech space operates. Right? Which means the mechanical aspect of it is the most important thing. Don't just jump into Excel and start building. First thing is to understand what is this business, how business is being run, right? How management think when it comes to business. one superpower you can have as a financial modeler is to be able to tap into the way your clients, the way they think about their business. Once you can draw it, it will be easy to transfer it into the figures, which is the second aspect that most people focus on, artistical part. What are you doing in the artistical part? You go to Excel, create one beautiful structure, right? You put in your input, your calculation, your output, you make it look so good. And you believe that's the end of it, right? Whereas you are missing out on the first aspect of it. I've seen guys that been building model for several years. They take them to another industry, it becomes a problem for them. Why? Because they only focus on the artistical part of it, while someone else was doing the mechanical aspect. So you as a modeler, you need to understand that we have two approaches to modeling. And what? The mechanical aspect, which I will always encourage you to even spend time on. So whenever I get a project from a client, you know what? If the model would take me 6 hours to build, trust me, the first 2 hours or the first 3 hours, I'm trying to understand this. Even if you want to write the financial modeling exam, the Financial Modeling Institute exam, the level 1, right? They will give you a case study. And the whole thing is first understand the case study before you even jump into the building the Excel. So mechanical aspects, how is business? Once you can understand the business, it will be easy for you to translate into the figure. In line with that, they said understand the story behind it. Now, any model you want to build must always be built around what we call 3S in financial modeling. And I will credit this to David Brown, right, of David Brown Consulting. And I think I picked this from him, which I've been using, and it's very important. So how management thinks in also these 3 directions. And any model you are building must always follow a storyline. Must follow a storyline. You cannot say that revenue will be growing at 100% and your operating expenses will be constant. Or you are saying what you'll be using to drive that revenue will be constant. It's all about a story. So now you look at the holistic part of the story, and so it's as good as you want to create a movie, just like the way they do it. So they will be like, okay, the objective of the movie is this. Now, how do we now create a structure? How do we create a flow that will lead to that story? Right? And the third one is they will now be like, okay, what if this does not happen? How can we incorporate this into this? How can we flow this into this? Basically, it just means every model you build must have a story. Because you don't just build a model and leave it. You also need to take a step ahead and do what? And be able to communicate what you've built. So as a modeler, you are also a great presenter. You are a good storyteller. So you must be able to tell the story, and the story must flow with the structure. And you can build in different scenarios, which is also these 3 approaches, these 3S, will be applying it in this our training. Right. Now, the next question is why financial modeling? As I said, I'm really not a definition kind of person. I love to understand how did we get it. Now, look at this. All the stories we've been saying, you observe that I've not even mentioned what is financial model. But I'm quite sure it's something you can relate to. Oh, understand how business operates, right? Then you can transfer that into figures in your Excel. Oh, and whenever you have any financial modeling case study, always think about 3S. It must be a kind of story flow. Oh, I want to start my business today. This is my product. How will the product get to the market? How will this? How will that? So it must flow. And you must build a structure flow around it. Now, let's now look at why this financial modeling? Why the stress? Trust me, one of the skills you can have in our corporates, in our current economy environment globally, is financial model. I won't lie to you. Why financial model? How did it start? Now, I want you to understand something, that the whole world as a whole, we are only involved in one thing, And it all started from the early days, right? You have something in your, let's assume you have something in your compound, in your environment. I also have something in my environment. Now, what you have in your environment, I need it. And what I also have in my environment, you also need it. What do you think we need to do? So let's also make this very, very interactive. So you can type in the chat box. So say you have something in your environment. I have something in my environment. You need what I have in my own environment. You also need what I have in my environment. What do you think we need to do? So let's make this, let's chat, let's have a rapport. Okay, thank you. We need to trade, right? Because we need to exchange, more like a trade but simple as that. And that is the whole concept, and that's how we started this whole thing from. Because it's all about business, exchange of one thing and the other. Right? So the early days, they also started the same thing, trade by barter. Now, in order to, they got to a stage, they realized that, you know what, we need to find a means to measure this, and that's where power came in. Right? And I think there's this quote that one of the dangerous weapon the world ever introduced to itself is what? Is money. So we have to bring in something as a means of exchange. Now, some people were able to gain advantage because they have more resources that is needed by others. And that's how we are living till today. So money was introduced, cowries, later coins, then our money. And from there, the whole business operation kind of started from there. People trying to exchange something. So some people have more than the other. So the whole story, which we are not going into today. Then later, while that was going on, people also discovered that, you know what, we're just doing exchange, you are doing this. We need to be able to make accounts. We need to be able to record what's going on, right? So they decided, you know what, we need to be able to document this so that we can know if we are making gain or we are not making gain. And that's where the whole accounting concept came into play. And that was Luca Paciolo that started the recording. I'm quite sure we all know that. Then they had to take it further that, you know what, we need to have a body that will be able to govern how people do the recording, to be able to see transparency, because someone asks more, need to give you more, right? And they want to see the return. So they just need that transparency. As that was going on, the world had to take the next step, where they had to go and colonize another environment. That you, this environment, I need what you have, but I know you don't have power. I'll come and take it over from you. Now, they took over some environment, but they still decided to, they gave them freedom. They now told them that, you know what, you need to be paying us, maybe some call it homage, maybe some kind of court, right? I think in the ancient world, they kind of have a unique name that they call that, right? Basically, they just try to uh, uh, bring in something in form of tax. So it's as if I come to your compound, I'm taking over what you have, and I'm still telling you to be paying me something from what you have. So it's just kind of we are in a very interesting world. So the concept of tax was introduced, and this was what people were just doing on the actual basis. Then before the concept of modeling now came into play. So one thing I want you to understand about modeling is this. It's all about the concept of future. All about forecasting performance, predicting to gain advantage. Now, Bricklin was, I think some people call it father of spreadsheets. They also have this other guy too. What happened? He already had MIT, which means he's kind of a computer literate person. Then he went to do his MBA. Now, while he was doing his MBA, they now gave them something like a case study, right? Because then that's when the whole stock story started. So they're like, okay, let's assume you have $1,000 today and you want to invest it into a stock. And the stock is already promising you that, okay, they'll be giving you 10% annually for the next 5 years. What will be your gain? Do you want to value it today? Now, they now give them another assignment, which they said, okay, what if the expected rate is now 15%, 20%? So I don't know, maybe the lecturer was just decided to stress their brain. So he gave them almost like 10 different scenarios. What if it's 10%, 12%, 12.5%, 15%? But it was just like, what is this? I think the way we used to calculate our IRR manually before using Excel. I'm sure we remember we used to do that kind of funny formula where you need to go through different funny stress. So the guy basically was like, this is really not making sense. How do I need to be calculating different scenario? It's really going to consume my time. So what he now thought of is, but there should be a way we can have something such a way that all I need to do is to just change the input, right? The calculation that I've done already would still be there, and it will automatically update itself and give me the output. That was the whole thing, because it felt so lazy that I can't be, that's more like 10 different calculations. That I need something, I can put my input, the calculation, I will just do it once, right? Anytime I change that input, the calculation updates itself and I have my output. So he called on his friend, Bob Frankson, and say, hey guy, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Luckily, the guy was able to pick his vision. And that's where the first spreadsheet started from VCCAG, we moved to spreadsheets, we moved to Lotus. So with the presence of that Excel, with the spreadsheets, it's really aid the development of model, because people now have ability to automatically to have their inputs, do the calculation once, and have the output. Such they change the inputs, it affects the calculations, and they have their output all at once. And that's how we got started with financial model. Right now, you can see that story. As I said, it's all about business. Now, let's now look at from there, how did we now move into business? And how did money now become the order of the day? So now, one thing I want you to understand is this. Business is all about risk. One, business is all about risk. And everyone in any business operation has their role that they are playing. For accountants, they will tell us, oh, this is how we manage our risk till today. So they will give us the financial report. And when you look at the financial report, based, as I said, the way we model and understand concepts at times is always very unique. By the time they look at it, they're like, oh, how did we manage taking our stock, our product to the market and sell it? Oh, we're able to access the markets. This is our revenue. Now, if the revenue was not up to what was expected, then another problem will now start. The management will now start firing the marketing team, the managers do that. What happened? Why did so? That means they've not been able to manage that risk. They go to the cost, look at the bottom line item. Once there's loss, oh, next thing, how do we get to relieve our staff? It seems our cost is way more than. So that was the way businesses were operating. But later, management now realized that, you know what? It looks as if we are working blind. Yes, we make budgets, but budget is not the same thing as we being able to look into the future and be able to start making those decisions now. So which means risk, which means accountants, they only report the risk we faced so far. But finance is adjustable to risk in such a way that, yes, we can predict, let's look at what might happen and make the decision today to stay on the safer side. And that's the whole thing about modeling. Now, let's understand what we call business cycle and accounting cycle. And you as an accountant or finance expert, once you can understand business cycle and accounting cycle, trust me, you understand the mechanical aspect of every business. And you can look at any financial figures and be able to connect and tell the story and also the structure of it. Let's start with what we call, the site is all about business. Now, irrespective of the business you are doing, once cash is not involved, just know that you are playing. You are not doing anything. Even if you are telling me, yes, my business is, I sold $50 billion in revenue. If your cash is saying another thing, trust me, it is as good as nothing. Because in finance, cash is a measure of return. Right? Cash is a measure of what? Is a measure of return. So you need to understand cash, and cash is king in any kind of business. It's all about cash, 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 cash. Use that to measure the return. That's why you go to a bank today. Bank will tell you, we don't care about your income statement. You know, what we care about is your what? Is your cash flow statement. Let us see it. You can lie about income statement. You can lie about your revenue. You can lie about your profit, but you can't lie about your cash, because it is what you have in the bank that you have. And that is all thing about business. How do we manage cash? How do we manage cash? Cash is king. Now let's take a look at this. It usually starts from what we call operating asset business cycle, which means any kind of business you do, right? Remember, you need to understand the business first. Operating assets is the most important thing in every business. The first value of a business can be seen from its asset value in its balance sheet. Right? Operating assets, any kind of business. Now, asset is assets. Now, let me give you an example. For a manufacturing company, the operating assets would be what? Those plant and equipment that they use in producing their products. Now, if you go to a bank, what is their own operating assets? Focusing on the core operation of a bank. The operating asset is what? Is those loans and advances that they give out. So basically, you match that asset, you match it to the revenue, because that is what is driving them in generating revenue. Now, they generate revenue, they try as much as possible to manage costs. Then they have their profits. Operating assets. So which means every time you need to invest in operating assets, if you're saying, so anytime you want to increase your revenue, the same impact must be felt on your what? On your operating assets. But cash itself can even be your operating assets. For a typical tech company, their platform is also their operating asset, because if you have a platform that can only take 1,000 users, there's no way you'll be forecasting your revenue based on 5,000 users. And if that's the case, that means you need to also what? You need to invest more in your operating assets. And it's all about cash. Manage your revenue. You manage your expenses very well to have that profit stand. Now, profit does not end there, because you need to convert that profit into cash, which is the benefit and return. So whenever you are hearing story of, okay, we expect a return of 20%, we expect we are expecting ROI, return on investment, of 25%. If it's not translating into cash, it's all about story. It's all about cash benefits. Now, they don't leave the cash idle, they reinvest it back into the operating assets. Right. Cash is never idle. Now, what is the role of accountant in managing this business cycle, which we call the accounting cycle? Any operating asset of any business must be found in their balance sheet, also known as statement of financial position. Anything in income statements related to the profit, we call it profit or loss account, the same thing as income statement. Because your income statement can only take three things: revenue, cost line item. Then whenever you deduct any cost, any revenue, any cost from revenue, you have your profit. Or anytime you deduct any expense from any revenue, any profit, you also have profit. So 3 things. Are you a revenue line? Are you an expense line? Or are you a profit line? And for the third one is basically our cash flow, which would give full details on our cash. Previously, people don't usually use cash flow. We just prepare the profit or loss account, balance sheet, and they are good. But later, they now realize that there's a really need for this guy called cash flow statement, which is one of the most important aspects of your financial statement. Now, that's for accountants. Basically, they're just doing this report for us to tell us how we've managed our risk, how we manage our operating assets to generate revenue, to manage our expense, have profits, turn it to cash, reinvesting it to just keep growing the business. Now, the role of finance is also built around this business cycle. And basically, for the operating assets in the balance sheet, they are just their own is to make decision that which capital structure is best in optimizing this business for us, such that we manage it will give us a low cost and higher return. So capital structure and funding mix, that's their own decision. That's what they are making. So that's why the company wants to get a loan. They will make sure that, hey, do we have the capability? Can this business itself generate a cash that can meet up these financial liabilities? On the part of the income statement, basically market penetration. What are the strategies that we need to develop to be able to gain market, to sell more, right? Be able to manage economic impact on our expenses so that we can maintain a profitability stand. Then on the part of the cash, that is what we use as investment viability to measure how much profit we've made. Now, your understanding of this is very, very important, because anytime you look at any model, any financial model, this is the story that you want to see. If you cannot find this story, if they are not aligning, which is the mechanical aspect of it, then you know that the artistical part is just rubbish. I've seen a team that worked on a project. They spent almost 3 months on the project, only to get to the board meeting, present the model. They only asked them 2 questions, and they were unable to provide answer to it from their model. And they had to cancel that. What they've done is totally rubbish. If they cannot provide simple answer to this, right? So it's all about reality, right? So many startups are failing today. As much as they have their own, I think we finance guys also have our own role to play there. Can't just say in a business we start today and tomorrow they are skyrocket to another planet, whereas the cost is slowing down. So the story is not there. You cannot see the business cycle. All right. Okay. I think someone has a question. Yes, please. Oluwaseyi Taiwo. You can as well type in the chat box as well, or if you prefer to just open up your mic.
Yes, yes. So my question is about the reality stuff, because I've had to work on a financial model like while doing some courses. And one of the things I discover is that if you are really going to be real, nobody will actually invest in the business. Because I mean, you cannot be telling an investor that you are not going to get an return in the next four years or so. I mean, I feel that it is what do you call it? It is self. I don't know. It's like you are not really selling yourself, and you are probably pushing yourself down before you even get a chance. You're not giving yourself a chance. So how do you balance that in terms of, you want to woo the investors, and you still want to be real. But if you're going to be real in terms of business environment, you might not actually expect yourself to get profit, because when you look at the likes of Twitter, Google, and all of those businesses that are like, I want to believe that they didn't start making profits in their first year. And so, how do you match reality with investors' expectation?
Thank you for that. Right. In fact, I love that question. Now, to every story, there are always two sides to it. And that's how I'm going to answer your question. To every story, you will always have two sides of story. And when it comes to investment, getting funds from investors, it's all about how you can sell yourself. You can present your business to me and I will feel, well, I think your projection is fine and I give you the money. You can share it with someone else and feel like, guy, you've not model reality. Yes, we know nobody can actually get the 100% reality of it, but you should at least be very close. Even if you cannot be close enough, you should be able to model that reality, which is what I want you to understand, right? For example, number one, keep this in mind, revenue does not grow in isolation. You cannot be saying my revenue will be increasing yearly and my costs are just crawling. In fact, there's some markets that you really don't have power on your pricing, but so many things are driving your cost. So when you are building that model, you should be able to, even, yes, we know you cannot be 100% accurate, but you should be able to model that. We need to just help. Right. Okay. All right. So that's the role of finance, guys. Now let's now see how these flow into financial modeling concepts. Said today will just be a short session. How does this flow into our financial modeling concept? Application of this business cycle. Now, once you can understand this, once you can get this whole concept today, our subsequent session will just be with now getting started with the artistical part of it. How do you treat this line item? How do you calculate this line item? How do you put your model together? Okay. Now, the flow into the financial model, and this is the approach I usually use. I want you to assume that you want to start a business of your own today. Just assume anything, any business concept. Just think through it. Let me give you 2 seconds. 1, 2. Did anything come into play? Just anything, any business concept, no matter how stupid it is. Right? I think I have a business concept. I want to be selling bottled water. Back. Now, let's assume if I had a thought on a business concept. What is the first thing that you need to do? Oh, I have this business idea. What is the first thing that you need to do? Now, you are now wearing a cap of a management personnel, right? The mechanical aspect of it. Now, let's type in the chat box. You have a business concept in mind. What is the first thing that you need to do? How do I make money from it? Good. Business model, perfect. Market research, I love that. What is the first thing that I need to do? The first thing is you need to be able to do your what? Your visibility, market research, right? What will be my business model? What are the factors that can affect my business? I recognize the business risk. That's the first thing you need to do, right? And most times during your market research, your visibility, the model of a thing also comes into play. Now, once you've gotten that, once you've been able to understand, oh, there's a market for what I want to do, I've done my market research, I think I'm good to go, right? The next thing that comes into that business is cash, because you cannot do anything without cash coming into play. They now think, what is the first way that cash can actually flow into this business? And that is the funding. I have this business concept. I've done my research. I'm sure that yes, there's a market for it. Then the next thing is you need money, which is the first cash that will come into the business. Investing. So will it be your own funding? Do you want to get investors, right? Do you want to get loans? Now, in making any of these decisions, you need to think about the cost of financing. Then immediately you've gotten your funding, right? So you then go ahead and start making use of that fund. Oh, I need to get operating assets, which is the first thing. I need to make provision for what? Working cash. Because if you start a business today, does not mean it is that same day that the business will start generating cash to sustain itself. So you need to make provision, could even be for the next 6 months operating expenses to allow the business survive. A year. I built a model where we had to make provision for 2 years working operating expenses in form of cash. Because like, okay, you know what? Year one, we are just trying to enter the market. Let people trust what we are doing. Right? Spend on marketing expenses. Create that awareness. Give free things to people. Let them trust us. Then in year two, we cannot believe that, okay, yes, now let's start making something. So that's how to really think about business. And there's a modeler. That's what I actually want you to do. Okay, what's the difference between operating asset and capex? Okay, I love that. Please always ask as much question as you can. Operating assets and capex. Okay, I don't want to be the only teacher in the class. Anyone want to help us share light into that? Difference between operating assets and capex. Okay, yes, please go ahead, Sadiq. Please, you can unmute your mic. What's the difference between operating assets and capex? Anyone? Not sure we can hear you.
Can I add things?
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, operating assets are what we use on our BAU, business as usual, to run the business. Why capex is a capital expenditure that require like a project to do NPV, and is mostly based on the expected cash flow, the source of income.
Okay, thank you for that. Perfect. I love that. Okay, anyone want to share light into it? Anyone else? So people are also dropping comments in the chat box. I love that. I love that. I love our contribution. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Operating assets are the assets you use to generate revenue for the business, while capex are just all your capital expenditures, like expenditures that will last you for more than 1 year.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So thank you everyone for the contribution. So because of time, okay. So operating assets. Asset is asset. Right, as I said, asset is asset. Could either be your non-current, could either be your current. But as long as that actual asset contributes to what drives your revenue. So it could be your factory plant and equipment that you use in processing your product that you sell. It could even be cash itself that is driving revenue. As long as it is driving revenue, is operating assets. Now, what is capex? Capex is just capital expenditure. So I have one asset. I just want to maybe you want to buy more assets. That is what we call capital expenditure. And during our practical aspect of it, you will see it. And I think I love the analysis we're getting from the chat box as well. All right. So capex is capital expenditure. Sorry, I didn't tell us the abbreviation. Okay. So after that, you've gotten your operating assets. You have your cash. You can get started with your business operation, right? With the business model. You start generating revenue, your cost, then you have your profit, which is what we use as efficiency management of your resources. You manage it very well, and from there, you generate your cash, which we now use as a base for evaluating your business. So this is a typical flow of a business. Right? And when it comes to financial model, all we are just trying to do is to now do the forecast for us to be able to make that decision that, hey, how profitable will this business be? How much cash will it be able to generate? Will it match with the amount that we want to invest in it today? Is it worth investing in? Right? And when we're also discussing, is it worth investing in, there are still some other factors that needs to be considered. Right? Someone say, how does profit turn to cash? Okay, I will also leave the class open. Anyone want to tell us that? How does profit turn into cash? So I also understand that some of us are really not accounting inclined. So I will really advise and encourage us to get up to speed on maybe taking 1 or 2 courses on basis of accounting, all right, so that you understand some of these concepts. Okay, yes.
Hello.
Someone wants to
Can I contribute?
Okay, yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Okay. For me, I think how profits actually translate into cash is our profit is part of our revenue from our sales in a normal business operation. So when we sell our products, you get there are tendency that we might sell based on credit and on cash. So the part of our profit that has been realized, that have been paid by our customers, they say this thing receivables, what actually translate into cash initially. Then the other portion of it, which is still part of profit, but they are not in cash, they actually comes under unrealized this thing cash. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Thank you. As I said, please, as a financial modeler, always make sure you should be able to understand the concept in a layman term. So profits, basically, standard is saying either you made your sales on credits or you collected cash, or you sold your product and you told them to pay you later, right? You can still recognize that revenue and can calculate the cost and everything to get to your profit. But when it comes to your cash analysis, cash is saying, even though I'm saying I've sold 100 billion, if the only cash I've gotten from that 100 billion is 20 million, that means that's my cash, and I must recognize it against the actual cash that I also spent as well. So just that. Okay, now how do we incorporate this into a business cycle? As I said, do your research, markets, recognize all economic factor, get your first cash that comes into the business in form of funding, right? Use the fund to acquire some operating assets, your assets. Just tell us what you want to use the money for. And then from there, make provision for your working cash, start generating revenue, manage your costs, have your profits, and from there, turn it back to cash, right? So then from the cash, you can invest it back into the operating assets, or you could decide to take your cash out of the business. Simple as that. In other words, understand the business model and the business canvas. What's this business into? Gather your base from your market research, general macroeconomic assumption that can drive your business. From there, get your financing assumptions, and then how you plan to make use of the fund, the capital expenditure, operating assets, maybe the marketing and awareness creation, need to get licensing, just how you plan to make use of that funds. Then from there, make sure you make provision for operational expenses. For example, you prepay your rent. You need to make provision for that, insurance, maybe 6 months, and operating expenses. Then start generating your revenue. Tell us how you are going to generate your revenue. What are different costs? And then you can now go ahead with your calculation and output and your analysis, which is the artistical aspect of it. Okay, so yes, Oyebode, do you have a question or a contribution?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, Victor, please, this is not really a question. I'm just asking this. Is it possible to get the recorded version of this meeting after the class?
Okay, yeah, definitely. Some of us, some of us came in a little bit late, so that was the first thing we also mentioned when we started.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Now, this business cycle, we're now going to transform it into, let's use this to build a case study, right? Assume a business cycle, assume a business concept, and let's now apply that business cycle into it. Now, you can see that the approach I'm using in this modeling, you can see that we've not even discussed anything. What is financial model? What are the key aspects of financial models and duty? But I've taken it from the aspect of you understanding a business. right? And that is the reality of models that we are building. So if you understand this, any model you build yourself, you will be able to question yourself. Is this made up? Does this flow? Right? So now, part of the reminder email that I sent to us this afternoon, over here, right? We have this file called 01 AFM business cycle. So please, let's go ahead and let's open it at our hand. So as I said, this will be a very practical session, a very, very practical session. So please, let's go ahead, let's open it. Let's open the document. So it should look like this. It should look like this, the 01. The 01. Using that business cycle and accounting cycle knowledge, let's use it to create a business concept. Let's use it to create a business concept. Use it to create a business concept. So please kindly go ahead, open the file. So you can check your mail again in case you didn't check it. I sent a reminder mail like 15 minutes before, like 30 minutes before the session. So I want us to go ahead, open it, and this will be your first task. This will be your first task, right? I've done a session like this, and many people really got some interesting business idea from it, and they decided to carry on with it. They even got financing for the business, and they got started. Okay, so please, I would like just click on your hand too. I'll give a thumbs up immediately you have the file open, so that I'm sure we are on the same page. Okay. So check your mail. You have, I think I sent 3 documents. 3 documents. Okay, all right. So great. So please, I will really encourage us. Okay, so someone is saying, Victor, what's on my? So yes, having my PowerPoint being displayed. Yes, PowerPoint. Okay, all right. So, as I said, today we are just going to keep it short, right? And the whole objective is, number one, understand that this thing is all about business. It's the reality of what we do day to day. Okay. So now I want you to go ahead and open the file. And this will be our own activity against next week. So I'll also give us time to be able to go through this. Now, let me do example for you. And this will be your own activity. Everyone will feel their own. And please, I will really encourage us, if you can share this with us against our next session, right? You just decide that, okay, you know what, let's be flexible. What I had in mind was your submission of this activity will confirm your you joining us in the next session. But I think I can trust us. We are all mature minds, right? And it's just a knowledge sharing session, nothing more. So I'll give you an example, and you can now go ahead and use that to create your own business concept. Now, remember what we said. The first thing is you do your what? So let's go back to the business cycle. Please, I want you to give attention to this. The first thing is you do your market visibility study and understand things that can affect your business, right? And here we've provided so that, okay, during your visibility study, you need to recognize few things. And now let's now look at this. What are the general things that can affect your business? So my own, I'll just give you an example. Your own, I want it to be very detailed, please. Right? And one thing I usually tell people is this. If you want to learn something today, and you decide not to give your best to it or devote your full time, now think about it in the next 3 months or next 4 months, right? If you don't have that skill, and looking at yourself today, will it make any difference? Will it make any difference? So you think, let me do the sweat today, so that in the next 4 months I can know that I'm a better product. Right? Life is all about branding, the skill you have, what you had to yourself, such that if you walk into any place, that I have this, I have this, I have this. So please, I really encourage us here. Okay, so what if you are working with a real business concept? Yes, we may not be able to share it. Is that okay? So you don't worry. You don't need to. You just make assumptions. Even if it's a real business concept, just make assumptions. So general data. Number one thing is there's no way you operate. Your business cannot operate more than a month in a year. So these are more like a general kind of data, right? So maybe let's say 365 days in a year, right? Then, okay, no. How many months do we have in a year? It's not 300. So that should be 12 months. Okay. So I can also put a descriptive something here saying this is more like a month. Then you can days in a year. You cannot operate more than the days in a typical calendar year, right? So which is let's just say 365. Which other things? Some general data that you know that irrespective of the type of business you are doing, it applies to you. Right, so let's just look at my own first so that you understand this. We do an example there. So weeks in a, so you can have your weeks in a month, right? So also those general data, you must also know that, oh, but maybe if you want to calculate anything, right, you must need it. So weeks in a month, definitely that we have 4 weeks, right? I hope they've not changed it in your own calendar, but I think my own is still 4 times you can have 5. So you can have your general data, general values related that can affect your business. For example, they're saying I'll be selling 5,000 units monthly. That means 5,000. Then you can multiply by the number of months in a year. Maybe you'll be selling 200 units in a day. That means you need the day. You need maybe you might want to convert it to a month first before. So all those things. Now on the macro aspect of it, macro things that can affect your business, definitely inflation, making provision for time value of money. So you usually have inflation forecast for the period, but we'll get to that. So, but for now, you can just put any inflation rate that you feel comfortable. Just put. You don't need to be accurate with this. Just put fictitious assumptions, right? The whole thing is you understand the concept and you understand how this play out when you are feeding this into your model. So inflation. So at times you could also have your pricing rate too, right? So maybe inflation is affecting cost, and maybe your pricing has a different driver, right? So which other things? So someone also mentioned tax, so you can have your tax rate. So more like things that are generic that can affect a business as a whole. So you can put those ones under your macro economy. If you have more, please put it. Take your time. Which other thing? Okay, yeah. So you can also have some currency. So maybe you are building a model where you need to convert from dollar to all those things. So you can just put your FX rate if you really need that. So any other macroeconomic thing, right? NPR. Maybe you want to calculate your interest rates, and you can always. I'll leave that to you, right? Because remember, as a modeler, you should be able to think. So financing, let's assume we are going to get from both our equity and also we are going to get from our debt funding. So maybe for our equity, we might get like maybe $25,000. So you can let's use a generic currency, right? So for your debt, maybe you might get a debt of how much? Let me see, maybe $30,000, right? And that will give us the total funding that you need. Right, so once you do this, you now need to tell us what do you plan to use the money for? What do you plan to use the money for? So maybe I'll just give you an example, right? So maybe you need licensing and registration, right? What are the typical things? Then maybe you need to get some equipment. So maybe factory or okay, let me just put normal equipment. So you need to get equipment. You need to get furnitures. Some furnitures, right? You need to get, maybe you need some software. So you need software and website, So you just trying to list things you want to use the money for, right? Then you can have some marketing and advertising. So you could also make this look good. You can just do them in a section, right? So that it's kind of look good. So maybe you need to make provision for your maybe you need the inventory if you'll be selling something. So inventories or more like raw materials that you need to get. You need to make provision for your pre-operational expenses. But by the time you do everything, right, everything here must your total use of fund must be equal to your total funding needed. So use of funds must equal to total funding needed. Right. So by the time we're also doing the practical aspect of it, we also do that. Then you go ahead, tell us how will the business be generating revenue. Just give a short overview. You don't have to be accurate, right? But just to test our understanding. Right. Then any other direct cost, any cost that you need that the business will need to generate those revenue, you need to also put them here. Operating expenses, salaries, utilities, all those things you need to put them. Then you also need to make provision for your working capital, your receivable days, your payable days. So just for you to have that understanding. So you can see that quite simple and straightforward, right? So you can do this. So so you have that. You complete that. So remember, discuss and agree on any business concept of your own. Create assumption for the business using that business cycle. Then just share the model. Share your work file with us. As I said, please, I would really encourage us. This is the fact that the bootcamp is free, right? You need to understand that nothing has never been free, right? Even in Freetown, there's nothing free. Your time that you dedicated in attending this bootcamp, you could imagine, assuming you are a businessman, you need to take your product to the market and go and sell it. But you've decided that, okay, you know what, let me stay and just attend this bootcamp. That is the fee that you are paying, right? The time that you're supposed to, even if you want to sleep, that is a cost. That, oh, I've decided not to sleep and listen to this. So please, let's make it worthwhile, right? Let's make this worthwhile. So as against our next session, so that let's just work on financial. Okay, don't worry. That one will be a later call. So please fill that as against our next session. And now, what you are doing is you are wearing a cap as if you are the business owner. But when it comes to you building a model, you need all those information that you'll be filling inside this document. You need it from your client as well. But the truth is, your client does not understand all these things. So which means you need to be able to also create a questionnaire. At times they call it information request list. Very concise that you can share with your clients and they can provide you those few information. So we take a look at that in our next session. But as a preparation against that, you have other two documents which we call financial model questionnaire, right, which is a Word document. So you can go through that as against our next session, right? With your understanding of that business cycle, what we've done is we've also created a sample questionnaire that we share with a client. As I said, this will be a client's real case study base. So this is a sample of what we've shared with the client. Because definitely you can't send that Excel. So that's you wearing the cap. But now you are the modeler. You need all those information from your client. So how do you put together your questionnaire? So you can take a look at this, read through those questions, and you also see that they match with the business cycle, what you are also creating. So first thing is all about the business, the name of your business, business location. This will also help you to determine some macroeconomic data. Oh, inflation, you can be using inflation of US for in Nigeria or for another country. Give a detailed description of the business. That means you that you want to build the model, you need to understand what the person wants to do. Do you have any historical financials? For most time, for this, we are just assuming it's a startup. So how much investment? So just for you to now relate, look through the business, look through that business cycle, and look at how we've used it to create this questionnaire. All right, and in our next session, we just pick things up from here, from this questionnaire, and how you also connect that into your three statements. All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Please, in case you have any question, so let's. I don't like to overload people with much, especially when it comes to virtual training. Right, an average person can only focus for 1 hour when it comes to virtual training. And that's the truth, right? You see that virtual training where they are saying 3 hours training I'm not sure. Because someone like me too, 30-40 minutes, my concentration will go into another thing. So I'm going to keep it as simple as that, uh, right, for now. So please, let's take our time. The next training, the next session will be communicated to us, but definitely that will be next week as well. So I'm getting a few questions here. Okay. Uh, okay. So we send you the PDF. Okay. Yes, you can say yes. Please send the PDF form. That will be fine. Please, can we get your WhatsApp number so as to ask some question before the next class? So I think we can keep this team channel open, right? Even after the meeting, you can always type in this. You can type in the Teams channel, so it's more like a communication. So we can continue the chat after that, or still we can also create a Teams group where everyone will be there. But I'm also I'm trying to be professional and also be cautious, right? Because we create a group now and people will start disturbing others. Trust me, so many of us are busy, and the last thing you want to be here is just you don't want to be getting unrelated information. So I think let's keep it here. Have any question, you can send a mail, I will attend to it. Okay, so are we going to get this slide and recording? You will get the recording, but the slide is my personal resource. So let's leave the slide. You can always go through the recording and pick my own. Remember, the objective is knowledge sharing. Understand this, and you can stand anytime, any day. Okay, so there are some business that we can know how much is needed until you start building the model and doing the market research. Yes, that's part of your work, so do it too. Yes, and I said based on that, that's why you need to be able to develop a questionnaire that you share with your clients. But now you are assuming that you're assuming yourself as being that client, so also go through that stress that typical clients will go through. So remember, as a modeler, you're also a research analyst, a sound one for that matter, because you need to be able to defend all the figures. There's some client that will tell you, I don't even know how much I need. I don't even know this, but they will give you the whole business concept of what they want to do. Right. Okay. So is it possible to build financial model for existing businesses? Yes, but with this, our bootcamp covered that. This one we will only consider a typical startup. Yes, maybe some other ones we can now do that. Okay. Like we may not know the cost since it was function of revenue that we have not even modeled. Yes, yes, yes. We're the cap of being a business owner. Okay, so yes, you can just send it through the mail. Okay, all right. So thank you, everyone. I'm quite sure we are all busy at our respective end. That's why I've decided to keep this short, right? Okay, all right. So someone got in here late. Please, yes, this is the boot camp. Yes, sorry you came in a little bit late, but I believe you have access to the recording. So all right, thank you everyone. Thank you so much for your time, and I believe we got one or two things today. So the next session we then go into the artistical aspect of it. So please take your time to understand this mechanical aspect, be able to think about business, right? Be able to tell the story, look at the structure, look at different scenario that you can create from this. Deadline for submission, as I said, we are a professional colleague, so I believe you should be able to do it at your own pace, Right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your presence in this session, and I hope you enjoyed this. So immediately the meeting after we have the recording process, I will also share it with us. Right. Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. I'll just maybe stay back for like 2 or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. For anyone that maybe you have 1 or 2 questions, you can just we can have that discussion before we call it a day. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We appreciate your commitment. Your time is very valuable. Trust me, and we value it. All right, so thank you so much. Remember, you have that Word document that you need to fill. Assume yourself as a business owner, wear that cap, and be able to create some figures around it. Then you have the questionnaire in form of Word document, which is what you put together and you share with your clients. But it's always good you also go through that process of completing this questionnaire, because it's always not easy. Right. But it gives room for you to be able to think through your business. So thank you, everyone. And please, let's make sure we enjoy the rest of our day and stay safe. Thank you. Okay, someone is saying, what are we submitting? Not been concentrating. So fill in the Excel document and you can share it with us, either in form of PDF or the Excel file. Right, thank you all. Thank you, everyone. So please, the next session will be communicated to everyone.